Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets. Go to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Andrew DiCecco is back. We've been having a lot of fun diving in on the divisions. AFC West today, where the Kansas City Chiefs reside, a Super Bowl contender. Any others in the division? We'll talk to Andrew about that. We'll start off with maybe, Andrew, one of the more interesting teams in the NFL this year. It's the Denver Broncos, who many people feel have a pretty good roster. It's just all about the quarterback position, and that might be one of the more interesting battles in any NFL camp this year. Drew Lock against Teddy Bridgewater.
Neither option is very enticing when you look at it, but, I mean, look at what Drew Lock did last year. He had 57% completion percentage, only 6.6 yards per attempt. I mean, that's just unacceptable considering the weapons that he had. Yes, he didn't have Cortland Sutton there all season. He's his big possession, big-bodied receiver, but he did have Jerry Jeudy. He did have Tim Patrick, who came on last season, who I think is a very underrated wide receiver. I believe he led all pass catchers on that offense with 6 touchdowns. And the offensive line around him was decent, but you had guys like Noah Fant and all these different pieces around him to be successful. And he never really took that next step, so that's a little concerning. Then when you look at who's in contention with him for that job, you have Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a stabilizing presence, but I don't necessarily know that he's someone that's going to take that offense and steer them into the promised land, so to speak.
Yep, that'll be one to keep an eye on. Locke versus Bridgewater. Of course, they made a trade to get Bridgewater. Does that, in your mind, it's interesting. You make a trade for one guy, you draft another guy in the first round. Who gets a higher, a possibility to start based on we traded for you or we drafted you so high?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Drew Lock's going to have going to get the nod early on, but I also think that his stranglehold on that top spot is tentative at best. I think that they're going to give Teddy Bridgewater a fair amount of snaps with the first team as well, and I think that's going to be one of those battles that sort of is figured out at the very end of August. And behind him, you have Brett Rippon, who played some last year as well. So obviously they didn't like enough of what they saw for him to be a viable option to contend with Drew Lock. So, I mean, he's there as well, and he has some NFL snaps. So they have a lot of experience in that room. So we'll see how it shakes out.
All right, let's see what kind of weapons whoever the quarterback will have. Melvin Gordon behind him. They'll also have Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, as you mentioned. Jerry Jeudy was a high pick last year. KJ Hamler, also a draft choice. Noah Fant, pretty good tight end, pass catcher. So
Javonte Williams, the running back there in the second round, he's a phenomenal talent.
Yep, and you mentioned the fact they had Patrick in there, but Hamler was the Penn State kid. Font, they do have some weapons for whoever the quarterback of this team is.
Yeah, and that's exactly why it makes them an intriguing team. However, I'm not sold on either quarterback being that guy that's going to be able to maximize the talent that he has at his disposal. So I think that the offensive pieces are going to be very enticing, but I don't know that they're going to be able to. They're not going to be best served with either player that's probably going to be under center.
Offensive line always underappreciated, but a big factor. Does whoever wins this quarterback, will they get good protection?
It's going to be all right. It's pretty much lukewarm. I mean, they have Garrett Bowles, Dalton Reisner from a couple of drafts ago. I believe it was the 2019 draft. He's there as a guard. Bobby Massey, right tackle, is a mess. I think that they have Lloyd Cushenberry from USC. He's their center. He was their third-round pick last season. So they do have some young talent there and some formidable pieces there. It's certainly not one of the worst offensive lines that you're going to see. So, I mean, it's competent enough for them to have some success.
All right, over on the defense, Denver's been pretty good on that side of the ball. It won them a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I say a couple of years ago because it seems like it was such a long time ago, but a lot of that crew is gone. Von Miller, Kyle Fuller, Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons, They do have Ronald Darby as well. They've got some interesting names on the defensive side of the ball. Bradley Chubb, by the way.
Yeah, some of their key players that they have on defense are going to be very disruptive. I think Bradley Chubb is an ascending pass rusher in this league. Josie Jewell is a solid, tough linebacker, doesn't move particularly well laterally, but I think he's more of a thumper there. I believe if you're a Penn State fan, he gave them trouble. He played for Iowa. Patrick Surtain, you mentioned, is there. Von Miller is still playing at a high level. Doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. Justin Simmons is a tremendous player in the middle of that defense on the back end as their free safety, And Kyle Fuller is a solid right corner. You mentioned Ronald Darby. Ronald Darby sort of bounced around a little bit. I had a lot of promise in him when he was with the Buffalo Bills, but he really, between health and just inconsistencies on the field, I don't know that he really gives them a boost or moves the needle at all. But, yeah, he's there as well.
All right, over to Vegas, who was interesting. John Gruden, of course, a much ballyhooed head coaching hire over there. Derek Carr, it always seems like, will he stay? Will he go? Are they happy with him here? Mariota, the backup. How do you look at Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota for John Gruden this year?
Well, I think Derek Carr is going to win that job coming out of camp. I think is he a flashy quarterback? Is he somebody that many people hold in very high regard when they look at some of the premier quarterbacks in this league? No, but he is an adequate enough arm to sort of elevate that offense and take advantage of the pieces that are around him. I think he's a much better quarterback than Marcus Mariota. I think he's a much more well-rounded quarterback than Marcus Mariota, and I think he's going to win that job pretty clearly and decisively by the end of camp.
All right, Josh Jacobs, I like him a lot at running back. Kenyon Drake, Jalen Richard. They've got Theo Riddick, too, as their fourth guy. So they've got some names in the backfield. Henry Ruggs, they drafted pretty high. Renfro, John Brown, Willie Snead has been a guy who was productive a couple of years ago, but really Waller is the piece. You're hoping Ruggs takes a big step. Waller, what do the weapons look like?
Yeah, Waller had almost 1,200 yards last season. When he's a do-it-all tight end, when you look at him, he's much what I envision Kyle Pitts with the Atlanta Falcons. I think he can do some similar things to just like Darren Waller can. He really is their top receiver. When you look at the guys who they have in Henry Ruggs, I know a lot of Eagles fans were enamored with him in the draft last year, but he, to me, always struck me as somebody like a specialist, a specialty type player, not necessarily, I use the term target monster. I don't view him as that at all. He played in 13 games last season. He got about 43 targets, 400 yards, I think, only 2 touchdowns. He's not going to be a red zone guy. He's more of a big play guy. And I think that when you look at a player who I do think is going to really step up this year on the receiving core, it's Brian Edwards from South Carolina. He has a lot of injuries. He had a knee injury that kept him out of the Senior Bowl. He had a foot fracture at the days before the combine. They kept him out of that. But he still was a third-round pick, big-bodied guy, can run pretty well, but he can be that possession guy, go up and get it in the red zone. And I think he's going to take a big step forward. They gradually brought him along last season, so I think he's going to be a factor. And Hunter Renfrow over the middle is a very secure option for Derek Carr. He's not somebody that's going to be a big catch-and-run guy, but he's somebody that's going to get those first downs and move those chains over the middle. I think he averages just under 12 yards a catch, so he's kind of in the similar mold to Greg Ward, sure-handed guy and someone that quarterbacks have a lot of confidence in. He was third on their team in targets last year, so there's a lot of trust built there in Hunter Renfrow.
All right, good stuff on the offense. Their defense has some names. Ngakwe's a guy that Eagle fans heard a lot about a couple of years ago when he was on the trade block. Corey Littleton, Casey Hayward Jr., Jonathan Abram, a safety. A lot of people would love to have a safety like him here. Ceylon Farrell as well. So can the Raiders' defense be a strength?
I think so. I think they can. However, they have Cleveland Farrell there on the defensive line. And when he was drafted, he was a player that I really liked, but I didn't think he was going to be a double-digit sack guy. He's kind of like a Derek Barnett. And I think he only has maybe just under – I think he has 6.5 sacks if I'm remembering this right. But you have a guy who plays behind him, Max Crosby, who I like very much. And in 32 games, he has 17 sacks in comparison with Cleveland Farrell's 26 games. So, I mean, Max Crosby's more of an undersized edge rusher that you don't want to – like a Josh Sweat that you don't want to put in had him take on 50 snaps a game because he sort of loses his effectiveness. But I think that he's a much better pass rusher and adds a lot more to the position than Clelin Ferrell. But Clelin Ferrell is a good run defender. And then you mentioned Yannick Ngakoue, of course. He's going to be a force coming off the edge there. And Malcolm Kuntz from Buffalo, who they drafted in the third round, as a player who I really liked in the draft. And I think he's going to provide some good depth there and some packages as well with Max Crosby. And then when you look at the second level, I think their linebackers are pretty stable. They're not super athletic. They don't move particularly well. They're not necessarily in the mold of the prototypical NFL linebacker. But I do like their backups. They're very young in the backup area there, but they have a lot of players who I was really high on in the draft, and either last year or this year. And Divine Diablo is an oversized safety from Virginia Tech who's going to be playing linebacker. Tanner Muse from Clemson was an oversized safety that they converted to linebacker. And Javin White from he's a player who I believe was in East-West Shrine Bowl, or he was in the collegiate All-Star game, after one of the big ones. But he's a player that I really like as well. So they're in pretty good shape there.
Andrew DiCecco, Football 4. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that seems to have injury problems. They find ways to lose games, but it seems that they have found their quarterback to replace Phillip Rivers and Justin Herbert, and I would anticipate you're thinking about a big year for him.
Yeah, I think Justin Herbert is going to have a monster season, and quite frankly, the pieces are there for him to do so, and I think he's going to continue his upward trajectory and become a star this season. And some of the weapons, I think adding Rashawn Slater at left tackle was such a pivotal move for that franchise to protect their franchise quarterback. And we mentioned a team last time we spoke about the Bengals that didn't do that. And I think the Chargers are building the team the right way. And Keenan Allen's still there. Mike Williams is still there. They don't have a speed guy, really. Josh Palmer was somebody from Tennessee. He went to the University of Tennessee. He was drafted in the third round. I think he can be that. I don't know that he has the top-end speed that you really need to stretch a team vertically consistently, but he can certainly do that. So he's going to be there. Jared Cook is also there at tight end. That's right. They lost Hunter Henry. Jared Cook, I believe, is on his fourth team in 5 years. So he's bounced around a little bit. He's a journeyman, but he's a veteran that knows how to get open and has caught some big passes in his career. And it's going to be another red zone presence to help out his quarterback. So you have to like what they have there. And then the dual running backs that they have. You have the thunder and lightning approach with Austin Eckler, the pass receiver, and then you have the guy who can be between the tackles grinder and Justin Jackson. So it's a very well-rounded offense.
Yeah, and also Rashawn Slater, they drafted to play left tackle. Corey Linsley's a good safety. Brian Balaga at right tackle. Their line should be better than it's been if they can stay healthy. You flip over to defense. This is where they're scary, man. They've had some names over here, Bosa, Tillery, Joseph. Obviously, they have not been able to stay healthy. Derwin James at safety. This could be the strength of their team, even with all the names you just mentioned on offense.
Yeah, they've just been snake bitten. They've been one of those teams that just year after year they have the guys to get it done, but for one reason or another, a key piece on that defense gets hurt, and then it sort of snowballs. But nevertheless, what they have right now, you have Linval Joseph, you have Joey Bosa, who I think could take the pass rush crown this season. He's that good. You mentioned Tillery. You mentioned Kaiser White, the linebacker. He was an oversized safety at West Virginia, your alma mater. He was more of a oversized safety that they converted to linebacker, which you're seeing more and more in today's NFL. I really like what he can do there. And then Derwin James is possibly my favorite defensive player in the NFL. He's a do-it-all safety, rangy, big, athletic, flies all over the field, closes on the ball exceptionally well. And then his running mate, Nasir Adderley, was a safety from Delaware who I really like, but he needs to stay healthy as well. So the pieces are there, Mike, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting teams to watch this year. They've had so many injury problems. Can they stay healthy, and can they keep pace with Kansas City? Let's flip over to them. Obviously, the AFC champions, the runner-up, the Super Bowl champions from 2 years ago, and it's all Patrick Mahomes, of course, who runs this show. But, man, he's got a lot of fun weapons, and I guess continuity is key for them.
Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs are a well-oiled machine now. It's his old hat. And just like you said, continuity is big. They have Tyreek Hill. You have Demarcus Robinson. You have Mecole Hardman. You have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think is going to take a big step forward in his second season. Travis Kelce is obviously a dominant tight end. I mean, and Mahomes is playing – he's the best quarterback in football. So, I mean, what do you do to stop that offense if you're in the AFC West? I have no idea.
Not a lot of great game plans have shut them down. They've kind of tinkered their offensive line, too, after a rough night at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think, to me, one of the key draft picks in the entire draft was adding Creed Humphrey in the second round. I mean, that was a steal in the second round, first and foremost. I thought he could have been their final pick at the end of the first round, but they have Austin Blythe there as well. Creed Humphrey is going to be a starter immediately. Austin Blythe is an undersized guy that kind of gets pushed around a lot, can play center or guard, but I think Creed Humphrey is going to be the guy there. Joe Thuney's there. Kyle Long is there. Mike Renners is there. They have the guys there now, and now it won't be Patrick Mahomes running for his life. Now there's guys there that can get the job done and have that offense running like a well-oiled machine.
It should be interesting on offense to see if they can continue to ascend. They've been one of the best offenses that we've ever watched over the last couple of years. We just talked about the continuity they have. Then on defense, Chris Jones, one of the best. They get good pass rush from Frank Clark. Nick Bolton was the guy we talked a lot about at the draft. Mathau is one of the better safeties in football. But is this the Achilles heel of the team?
I think so, particularly at cornerback. But when you look at how they're built, I really like their defensive lineman and Chris Jones. He's, like you said, he's one of the best. I think he can do it all from the interior. Frank Clark is a good pass rusher. Jaron Reed, who they added, is another good guy along the interior who can be a force and collapse the pocket. I really like what they can do. The linebacker situation, they have two players who are really young, but I really think that what they bring to the table, their skill set, really translates to the current NFL landscape. And Nick Bolton, who they just drafted, and Willie Gay last year, tremendously athletic, very fast, rangy sideline-to-sideline linebacker. You mentioned the safeties in Tyrann Mathieu. Juan Thornhill is a ball hawk, and he needs to stay healthy as well. But he can do that's as good a safety tandem as you'll find in the NFL. However, when you get to the secondary and you look at the cornerback situation, that could be what holds them back or gives them a little bit of trouble this year.
All right. Will they have trouble in this AFC West, though? Are they the clear favorite, I would imagine? But if someone challenges them, which of the three do you like?
Yeah, they're the clear-cut favorite, Mike, but if somebody were to challenge them, I would say it would be the Chargers.
Chargers should be fun. I do agree with that. I think they're one of those sneaky teams this year. If they can stay healthy, as you said, snake bitten, I think that's a good word. So rank the four all and over in all. How entering training camp do you see the AFC West?
Well, I have the Chiefs as the class of the AFC West. And then I have the Chargers. And at 3, it's interesting because I had a conversation with my friend Matt and Paul, who are big Raiders fans, and I told them I graded them out, kind of gave them a 10-7 record going into training camp. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to have them slotted at the 3rd spot, and then 4th is going to be the Denver Broncos. They have a lot of shiny weapons to work with. I just don't think they have the quarterback to get it done.
Interesting. Denver is a team that, as I think we both said, has a good roster, but you just said it. Do they have the quarterback to get it done? Well, we'll find out at training camp when that opens in about less than 3 weeks now, man. We're almost there. And next week, when Andrew's back for Football at 4, we will get into the NFC side of things. We'll be at the NFC West on Tuesday, and then Andrew will be back for the NFC South on Friday. And then the following week, it'll be the North and the East, and then by that time, we will be into Eagles training camp. Can you believe it's here, man?
Yeah, it really crept up really fast this year. It's exciting.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Check out all their stuff over at InsideTheBirds.com and get it wherever you get your podcast. Andrew, have a great weekend, man.
You too, Mike. Be safe.
All right, I've enjoyed these Inside the Birds look at the divisions, and Andrew, well-versed, deep in all of these teams, and I like Kansas City as well. Obviously, I do agree the Chargers are a team that I would have at number 2. If another team makes the playoff in that division, the Denver-Kansas City thing, the Denver-Vegas thing, like Vegas last year I thought was better than I had thought. I think the Gruden hire was just a mess. He's just been average. He hasn't made a big impact for that team. Can he make an impact for that team this year?